Hello and welcome to this special episode of the India Revival Mission. I'm Nayantara Rai, working from home. Today we're going to be discussing consumerism, life post the lockdown, how factories are doing, how retail at large is doing, e-commerce too, with my next guest. And our next guest is the CEO of Bata, Sandeep Kataria, joining us on this edition of the India Revival Mission. Mr. Kataria, thank you so much for joining us right here on ET Now. Let me begin by first asking you, how did Bata do during the lockdown, and is there any visible difference as India starts to unlock for your business?
Thanks for having me on the show, Nayantara. Yeah, as you know that during the lockdown, all our stores had to be closed down in line with the government's mandate. Almost all our stores are now open, and we can see footfall coming back slowly but steadily back into our stores. We are now, of course, as you can imagine, waiting for the festive season to come around, which is always a great high point for all retailers.
So when you say that footfalls are coming back, can you tell me how far you still are from the pre-COVID levels? Because all malls are still not open, and there is still a fear to go to the malls, and the high streets are also looking a bit empty.
You're right, Nayantara, and that we do see across our stores. We did see that the smaller towns were the fastest ones to come off the lockdown. As soon as the unlock happened, we saw business recovering to almost 3/4 of their sales in the smaller towns. The malls and the larger towns have been slower, partly because the infections numbers were higher, and also because I think they had the option to be able to work from home. But we are seeing a slow and steady rise even in that front. Admittedly, the smaller towns are doing better, and also the stores near our residences are doing better. For us, the big challenge, of course, has been to be able to get to consumers where they are rather than waiting for them to come to our stores. And therefore, a number of measures in that side have helped get some of the business back.
So you're saying the smaller towns have done better. And in fact, I should point out that a lot of the consumer companies that we talk to are saying that the bounce back is faster in the small towns. Those in rural India are bouncing back faster as well. Maybe, the rain gods have at least been smiling, if nothing else, a silver lining that we have had. Before I get into all those specifics, I want to ask you some interesting trends that you might have seen since the lockdown. As India works from home, like the rest of the world, hasn't that also impacted demand? Like, for example, I'm hardly going to be wanting to go out and buy heels. There's only so many slippers I'm going to need. There's only so much formal wear that I'm going to need. And hasn't that been something that Bata perhaps has also had to adapt to?
Absolutely. So that has, of course, reflected on the demand. What we are selling is different from what we were selling pre-COVID. As people have stayed home and indoors, the demand has moved to more casual, more sporty fitness wear, more of the chappals and sandals. The good thing is that being Bata, we do offer a very wide range for the whole family. And therefore, our ability to be able to tweak what we are buying, what we are offering to our consumers has helped us in that manner, make sure that we are indeed giving consumers what they need. So I think one of the things that's been the most important piece for us over the last 5 to 6 months has been to be really listening to consumers and finding out what was the need of the hour, what was required for them. So let me give you an example. Even as the unlock started happening, we were seeing a lot of people walk into the store, but we were missing two of our key audiences, the youngsters, the kids, as well as the elderly. And therefore, it was important for us to go to these consumers. And out of that insight was the idea of Bata Store on Wheels was born. The kiosks, which we have now set up in more than 40 cities. We set up almost 200 every week to go to consumers' homes and make sure that we are able to cater to the audience of the youngsters, the kids, as well as the elderly. So it's been quite an interesting period to be able to listen, adapt, change, not just the merchandise, but also some of our channels and the way we've approached it.
So, Mr. Kataria, that's some of the ways you've had to adapt to the new normal. Because, like I said, men, women are hardly going to be looking, for example, for office wear, formal wear. Children, if they're if they're studying from home, that entire range also goes. So, what's happened to that inventory, and what are you doing with it?
No, I think the demand has reduced. It hasn't gone off. There are enough people like myself sitting in my office, people working in the industries, people working in some of the necessary, essential industries who have absolutely needed to go back. So it's just therefore been slower, and the same inventory has had to be extended over a longer period. On the other hand, we've seen demand for chappals and sandals, as you were alluding to, really go through the roof. So we've had to run those particular parts of our factories round the clock to make sure that we are able to cater to that demand. So it's been, as I said, we needed to be agile, we needed to listen and move. On the fashion, etc., some of the things which are in the pipeline, we have moved back. You will see some of that early next year rather than this year. But again, because we manufacture essentially from our own factories and a lot of our partners in India, we can be quite agile and make changes as we go.
Now, 2020 has, of course, been a year that all of us are still trying to comprehend. But if I were to look at the footwear industry at large, so pre-COVID, you of course had Budget 2020, in which the government did hike the import duty on footwear from 25% to 35%. Footwear components, that was also hiked from 15% to 20%. I'm sure you folks at Bata were dealing with all of that, and then came along the world's biggest lockdown, which we of course saw in India. How did you tackle all of that?
So I think first things, just to clarify, we produce a lot of our footwear, almost 95% plus of our footwear in India, right? So for us, some of the import duties and etc. have very limited impact. On how do we handle the COVID, like all of us, we had to really break it up into four different parts. I think the first one was to make sure that we were all talking to our teams and continuous dialogue with them, because safety was paramount. And of course, second piece was around making sure that we had the right cash is king, making sure that we were in a good place. Thankfully, Bata balance sheet is in a great shape on that front. So really the first phase was survive. The second was to revive, which was, I think, what we are now beginning to come to the end of. All our stores are open, 95% plus of stores. Our distribution channel, our e-commerce channels are all now chugging along. And now we move into what I call the revitalize phase, which will hopefully, over the next 6 to 9 months, move into when we say thrive and we start growing over pre-COVID levels. In this, while we were in the revival phase, it was important, as I said, to make sure that we were safe. All our stores had very strong SOPs to ensure, first, our teams were safe, and also give the confidence to our consumers. So a very thorough checklist, which everybody had to go through every morning and several times through the day, including reminders.
So, Mr. Kataria, if actually, can I come in there?
Sure.
So, Mr. Kataria, sorry to interject you. I want to come in there. Now, all of us who've been going to Bata showrooms and to buy footwear, to try on footwear, and you've also had, staff, supporting staff at your stores, which help the customers wear their shoes, tie their laces, right? We've all been to Bata stores. How have you made that experience feel safe to customers? Because can it really be contactless if you're opening for business in modern retail outlets?
So you cannot, you can be contactless to the extent it is possible. All your payments can be contactless. You can encourage consumers to be able to reach out and take footwear on their own. One of the things that we implemented as soon as we opened was that if a consumer had tried out a pair of footwear, we would quarantine it for 72 hours and not offer it back on the shelf or to another consumer. Our own teams had the right equipment for themselves, whether it was masks, whether it was sanitizers. We're also making sure that we were checking their status through the Setu app. Now, what we also then went on is to make sure that customers were feeling safe and comfortable, was to be able to take some basic details for them. And if we needed to be able to reach back to them and contact them. On our own staff side, we went through a lot of detailed, as I said, training on SOPs, which had to be translated to 11 languages, many ways to be done to ensure how much distance we could keep, how you could offer a shoe to a consumer to try on their own and then step back. Yes, it does mean that what we would ideally like to be able to help you even try the shoes on wasn't possible all the time. But, it's like at least we were able to get to a place where we were able to offer, suggest, service our customers in a reasonably free manner as we reopened. We also had to, in line with government regulations, control people inside the stores.
Because you said, Mr. Kataria, because you said that the smaller towns are coming back faster, can I just follow up and ask you that this entire conundrum, if I can call it that, of trying on a shoe, employees helping you wear the shoe, tie the shoelaces and all of that, is that even an issue in the smaller towns, or is it in the bigger metropolitan cities actually where there might be a fear at all?
No, I think...
I'm just trying to understand a consumer.
No, rightfully. No, it is. I think on that front, they're not very different. The profile of the shoes that we sell, yes, does change. And yes, you do have more slip-ons, and therefore the need for shoelaces probably is lower in the really smaller towns. But having said that, that inhibition was very much there. I think the answer on why smaller towns came back faster or have shown better response is quite simple. A lot of small town India still tends to come to bigger towns to do their shopping. With a lot of movement restricted, there was clearly demand in the smaller towns itself. Second, in the larger towns, a lot of our jobs allow us to function quite seamlessly from home, given today's technology. That is not always the case in a smaller town, which might be an industrial or a service industry, which needs you to step out of home. So when you put both of those together, I think the answer is quite obvious. Having said that, as I said, it is moving in the...
How far are you from the pre-COVID levels?
We are still...
Secretary, how far are you now from the pre-COVID levels?
From,
can you define the distance for us?
Quite significantly when you go across POPs data, when you go across malls. Malls, for example, stores are still below 50% of pre-COVID in many cases. In high streets, we see stores performing up to 75, 80% of pre-COVID rates. The distribution business, which caters essentially to the lower, open shoes, that's pretty much back to normal pre-COVID. E-commerce is doing even better than pre-COVID. So it is quite a mixed bag, depending on what part of the business you look at.
The other part I wanted to ask you was, and you're being candid here and saying that, you still have a long way to go to bouncing back to the pre-COVID levels. Then what are you doing to make sure that you bounce back quicker and faster? You've got a festive season, for example, coming up as well.
So the festive season is, as I said earlier as well, is one of the big parts of the business for us. We all retailers, especially in the fashion footwear area, look forward to them. And the two festivals which have happened in the recent past have given us a very good sign, whether it was the Rakhi festival in the north or Onam in Kerala. Both have given signal that consumers are looking to step out. They are looking for products they want to buy and help them feel better and be ready for the festivals. So that is going to help. And I think we will be pretty close to where we were pre-COVID levels post that festive period. What has also happened, of course, is at this period, it's also given us an opportunity to look at our costs, go back and discuss with our landlords. But I think even more importantly, look at other channels of reaching out to consumers and see how we can get those ready. So digital, if you look at it pre-COVID, it would have been a one or two pronged digital approach to consumers. We would sell on our own site at bata.in, or we would sell through the horizontal platform, the marketplaces. During COVID, we realized there were still many digital early adopters or even novices, which we needed to help out. So we set up a whole chain of WhatsApp-enabled shopping, where consumers can call, chat up with our store managers, and if need be, get onto a video call, and the products can be delivered to home. The other one was kiosks going to their homes. And both of those, for example, when we were there in the condominiums or in their near their houses, we realized we weren't able to carry our full assortment. And then we were able to use our own apps, our own tabs to be able to show a bigger range to these consumers and deliver later. So which is digitally assisted. And we are realizing that that is now bigger than our business on digital, on bata.in or through the marketplaces. So even that kind of tweaking, which we would have normally not done, has come into our repertoire, and we continue to build on that learning now.
Now, India's contribution to global footwear is about 9%. There is a clarion call by the Prime Minister to make all industries Atmanirbhar. How Atmanirbhar is the footwear industry? Was that a reason also you saw import duty being hiked earlier this year, and has that helped companies that manufacture in the country?
See, the fact is that India is the second largest footwear industry in the world. So we do make some very high quality footwear. We export to the world, but our export ranking isn't exactly where it should be. I think we are 9th or 10th as far as export is concerned. When you look at manufacturing in India, we do find the need every now and then to import some of the raw material that is used in India. In leather, we are very, very good, but on some of the other stuff, we do end up having to import. Even on molds, which are required to make our some of the kits in our shoes, we end up having to go overseas. I think if we are able to get some of that going in India, we will find our industry to be even more competitive globally and move up the ranking as far as exports are concerned as well.
Now, when you have said in the non-leather footwear arena, but I want to ask you one thing. When the Prime Minister addressed the Confederation for Indian Industry in the early part of the lockdown, he did talk about certain sectors that require more hand-holding, which should become more Atmanirbhar, we should see more employment in. And one of the focus areas that was discussed by the Prime Minister then was leather. Has things changed on ground? Has there been a difference at all? Have we seen reduction in imports at all? And then does that impact ancillary industries like footwear?
I think the imports have overall gone down clearly, but what is the impact of these measures versus the impact of demand reduction, etc., we will need to study that to really address it. Having said that, are we the CLE, the Confederation of Leather Exporters, the CIFI, the manufacturers, many bodies are working very actively with the government to make sure that we are able to get some of the impediments which come in the way out of the way. Also enable some more, as I said, raw materials, etc. How do we make sure more of that can be available easily? So there is a lot of work going on with the government right now, and I would suggest that we watch a little bit as some of those come into force as we go forward.
So if you could have a sit down with senior members of the government and give your suggestions, I know you give one or two here, what would they be?
So in fact, we are doing that, Nayantara. So I would, for the moment, resist doing that on on your medium. We are discussing that with them as a lot of the leather as well as footwear bodies working through the details. And I'm sure you will hear soon about more about this.
Now, you told me how you saw a surge in traffic on Bata.in. You're in touch with your landlords for the retail stores, the physical retail stores. How has it been also riding on other e-commerce platforms? Because I think what COVID-19 has also done is accelerated the spread of e-commerce and improved its penetration, right? How has that been for you?
Yeah, so as I was saying, I think there is a shift as consumers were not able to step out. There were need, and that had to be serviced. They have tried out. What we have done is we've segmented the consumers into three parts. There is the digital native, who's quite comfortable using Bata.in or one of the marketplaces to order shoes, try them out. The second one is the digital adopter who has come in, who's trying out new things. And then the third is really the digital novice. And we had to look at all three of these. For the digital native, it was quite simple thing. How can I make sure that you get the right product and the right fit? So things like find your own size. Now, if you go on Bata.in, you can actually, through the camera of your phone, check your exact Bata shoe size. We're working on how we can even recommend the best articles for us, which would give you the best fit, knowing your scan and your girth of your foot, not just the length size. So that has happened. The assortment available on these platforms was never higher. We've actually been able to connect our stores, which we were in the process of, to give even bigger assortment available to the digital natives. On the digital adopter basis, people who were quite comfortable using their mobiles, using social media, using WhatsApp, to be able to give them social media commerce, to be able to reach out, chat, see the product on a camera, and then home deliver it, receive it in their hand before making a payment. On the third one is about saying actually helping consumers, almost digitally assisting them to select. So when we are with them in their houses, how can they actually look at the wider assortment? We've just started an experiment in some of our stores in the smaller towns where we may not be able to stock all our assortments. We are sending in some of our assortments which are available in other stores, which are only available online. People can see them, try out for a size, but it gets delivered to them at home. So a whole wide variety of processes that we are implementing to make sure whatever your level of comfort with digitalization, you're able to access Bata at home.
So, with this taking off so much, you did say you're renegotiating with landlords, but isn't Bata looking to maybe shut down a lot of the stores? What is your store count? Does it make sense to still have all of these stores? Aren't you re-looking at that business?
So as a regular process, every year we will evaluate all our stores. We will look at stores which may be struggling because the trade area has shifted or the business hasn't come up to our expectations. And that's the process we went through this year as well. Even though we have the largest footprint in the country, we only reach out to 700 odd towns in the country. So therefore, for me, there's still a large potential, a long runway for us to grow. In fact, even as we speak, maybe because the smaller town consumers were not able to get to the larger towns, maybe because of the big campaign that we've been running to look for franchisees, we will be opening almost 50 plus stores of franchise stores in smaller towns this year. So that continues, in fact. So it is always, we are always evaluating our full portfolio, whether it's about opening new stores, company owned, in malls, in high streets, or even franchise stores all through, always around the year.
Q1 was obviously very bad, Mr. Kataria. We know that. You said you're still far away from the pre-COVID levels. There's distance to go. As I wind down this interview, can you give us any hint at what Q2 is looking like for Bata?
So I wouldn't want to talk about specific numbers right now, but what I can say is we've been adding almost 10% of business every month over the last few months, and it's a pretty steady increase. The effort is on to get to pre-COVID levels during the next 3-4 months and early part of next year. I think the way the trends have been, I don't want to leave you with an impression that things are very far off. They are. We think with the festive season, we should be able to come within reaching distance of pre-COVID numbers, and hopefully in the first quarter next year, get to pretty close numbers there.
Okay. With that, Mr. Kataria, I'll say a big thank you to you for being so candid. I know I asked a lot of questions that you may not have wanted to give hints to, but you've been kind enough to do that. Here's wishing you and the entire team at Bata all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.